Hey, Brian, good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Can you give us an example of how you've used ChatGPT to assist with your marketing materials?
Yeah, we have plenty of examples. I've used it for flyers. We've done website copy, landing pages, and things like that. I think the most interesting way is something I'm working on right now. But as you know, look, the promo industry is all about event driven, right?
Yeah.
A lot of things we end up doing is we're chasing after, all right, it's let's say Nurses Week in May. Um, so you kind of have to revolve your copy around all that. So all of your marketing
Mm,
now, you can use T-shirts for Nurses Week. You need mugs, pens. As a supplier, it becomes kind of challenging when you have a lot of products, right? We
yeah.
list our products on Common SKU. We list our products on Sage, on ESP, Sugar Central, all of those, right?
Right.
You need to be on those search platforms. And the way people search things are a little bit different now that Google is all kind of like, you can open ended, right? Google, you can type in whatever you want and you'll find what you're looking for. On those search platforms, you have to search a little more specific. But if your descriptions kind of match what someone's looking for, if someone's looking for gifts for Nurses Week, your product will then show up.
Mm,
And it is challenging, if you have 100, 200 products, how are you going to update every single product to mention
right.
this one event, right?
Right.
So something I figured out that ChatGPT does is there is an extension that connects to Google Sheets, and Google Sheets is basically Excel, right? So
Right.
what you can do is export all of your products. Say you have 100 products, export them all from the database, and you can have ChatGPT update your descriptions for each product. It's going to read the description you have so it knows what the product is, and you can prompt it right in Excel, just within a formula, saying, update this to reflect Nurses Week. And
Mm,
within seconds, you have hundreds of products completely updated to something relevant that's happening now. You haven't had to change it. You haven't had to move the data anywhere else. It's still in that format. So you can
yeah.
do that, save it, and upload it back into the database.
That's phenomenal. So basically, you have the challenge of marketing individual products through the search engine, through the industry search engines that we use
Yeah,
and through our platform. And so you're able to use keywords and find those keywords and find the right copy for each of those for each item, which would have been painstakingly difficult per item before.
for sure. Yeah. To update hundreds of products, I mean, you essentially need a sort of writing staff that needs to be there
Right.
kind of going through and updating all this stuff. For one person, it's a daunting task.
Yeah.
It doesn't completely replace the writing staff. You have copy that's already written, but you're able
Right.
to update that more efficiently, and you can follow these events. You don't have to be like, all right, well, I should write one thing, and hopefully it works all year. Every time an event comes, you just update that formula, and
Mm.
you can stay active. You can stay popular and relevant.
Yep. So you've got a product that you're trying to position for each of these events. You call them events. It could be a holiday. It could be anything. This could be a trigger that's going to be, and you have to probably, how many times a year do you think you have to change some of these items?
I mean, the next 2 months, I can think of like six events that are happening. Right, I have
Wow.
week. There is Employee Appreciation Day that just passed, but we also have Arbor Day coming up, um,
Yeah.
Teachers Week's coming up. So all of these events,
Yeah.
you'd have to find something more generic to speak to.
Right.
You're writing for every single one.
So you could have 50 events or more a year with 200 plus products.
Yeah, yeah. So if you do the math, I mean, it's a lot of updating. You're updating.
Yeah, for sure. Are there limitations? Are there limitations to what you're doing for this particular use case?
Yeah, I mean, there's various limitations. There is some bias that comes with Chat GPT.
Yeah.
So take a step back. In order to use ChatGPT, you're creating a chat, right?
Right.
You're basically having a conversation with someone. It's an AI bot, but you're having a conversation. So you open up a chat, and each chat has its own memory. So something I've learned is that if I'm in one chat, I can say, "Who's the fastest person in the world?" and it'll give me the answer, and I
Right.
could say, "I'm the fastest person in the world." And if I tell it no enough times, later on I can re-ask it that question, and it will tell me Brian Duran is the fastest person in the world. Not true. I am definitely not the fastest person in the world. But saved in that chat, there's a bias, right? So if you're uploading your own copy and being like, we have the best this and that, or this is the most efficient this, it'll run a bias around you. So you might not get
Hmm.
information that's very factual because it starts believing in what you're telling it.
Right.
And
So
I think,
that's a negative, obviously.
yeah, and I think that's a sort of limitation where, it's not staying true to fact.
Right.
Another thing about ChatGPT is that the information that's on there is only current up till September of 2021. So if, some sort of fact or event happened then,
Right.
fact checked it and was like, that doesn't exist anymore, the information is no longer current. So it
Yeah.
might be giving you misinformation. It might say,
Right.
oh, this is true. And you learn later, a year later, that that was disproven.
Yeah. But going back to product copy for all of these events, I mean, you could say that it's carving at least half of your time out just by crafting that, even if you have to go do a lot of editing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's going to save you a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily starting from scratch, but it's at least getting you to a point where you're able to update hundreds of products within, I say it probably takes about 30 seconds to a minute to read
Yeah.
all of that.
Right. You also suggested using Chat GPT or other chat. I've been using Perplexity AI, and there's a bunch of others out there now to upgrade your business or sales strategy. How?
So I'm one of those people where at like 12:30 at night, I have my best idea.
Right.
And I usually like frantically grab my phone. I'm trying to Google all these things, and I'm like, does this make sense? Am I onto something here?
Right.
And then I'm faced with kind of a challenge where I'm looking at hundreds of articles, and I'm like, I don't have time
Hmm.
to read all this. Is this even worth it? I've noticed I kind of use it for brainstorming with ChatGPT, where it's like, if I want to go after this market with this product, and I'm trying to figure it out, like just a sequence to go along with it. Like, is social media a good idea here, or is should I be only focused on emails, or is cold calling on this market a good idea?
Right.
You're able to ask ChatGPT kind of all these questions as you would in a conversation, and it's going to read all those articles that you might not have time to read and give you a summary of it.
Yeah.
I've had it kind of rewrite business plans for me with like side projects that I had, but more, more in the promo industry of like looking at like, who's interested in gift cards, or like, are gift cards really, a product that is desired by employees or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And you can get some real information out of ChatGPT without having to scour the entire internet looking for key points from this article and that article. It kind of does that legwork for you.
Yeah. It's a great point. Going back to summary and like creating a summary, this just happened yesterday. I had written an article. I wrote an article for last week, published it, and I was doing something else, and I needed a summary of my own article. So instead of me writing a summary of the thing that I already knew what it would be,
Yeah.
it probably saved me 10 to 15 minutes of time. I just popped it into, in this case, it was Perplexity AI, and added my own article to it. Now it was interesting because it gave me some mixed results, right? It's knowing the details of the article because I'd written it. I got the summary back and I was like, well, that's not actually what the article is about, with about half of it, but half of it was right. So
Yeah.
you could say at this point, at this juncture, that, it probably carved 50% of my time off of just doing that. Now where I've seen it work and not work. Work, I had a guest that joined me for a podcast episode like what we're doing here today. And I asked him to send me his bio. And instead of, and believe it or not, bios are hard for people to write. They're actually difficult for two reasons. One is a lot of people can't get objective enough about their own experience to write it. And there's a lot of humility in a lot of people, right? They're like, I don't think I've really accomplished that much. So they need someone else to help them write it. And this guy was a keener man. He went on to Chat GPT and he said, write my bio. And it was pretty good. It wasn't stellar, but it was probably as good as he was going to crank it out himself.
Yeah.
Um, Now I've also done it myself for bios for other people, for like speakers and things like that. And there were aspects of it that didn't include things that I would normally include, but still at this point, I love what Ann Handley, since we're both writers, Ann Handley talks about that, not thinking of AI as the creative replacement, but AI as the robot on your shoulder. And I thought that was a really good analogy, right? Of utilizing that power and understanding it for those kinds of things.
Yeah, I totally agree. The way
Um,
I see it is, if you're not using it, like if you're in content writing, UX writing, if you're not using any of these tools, whether it's
mhm.
GPT, whatever it may be,
Yeah,
Jasper, um, if you're not using these things, you're going to be kind of left behind, because it does
for
do
sure.
about, say, 85% of the work, and it takes a while to actually teach these AIs how to write properly, right? I
Yeah.
can go on there right now and be like, write me a blog article on the 15 best ways to do XYZ.
Right.
It's going to be close, and some of it you're like, I don't know if that was right. Um,
Right.
but there's still the artistry behind it. Like you
Yeah.
still personally know the tone, the audience. Should it be more educational? Should it be just more straightforward? So you can prompt all of that to the AI, and I think that's
Yeah.
one thing people kind of miss sometimes when you're playing around with a tool. You can rework what it gave you and get more specific on how you feel it should be. So you can kind of give it your own influence.
Yeah. In one of the more unique cases I've heard using ChatGPT, you just mentioned, alluded to it there with, I think, with UI or UX, as a bug finder in web code. Can you give us an example of what you at MediaTree did? How are you using it for that?
Yeah, funny enough, it was kind of fun. So we recently partnered with a company called Square.
Hmm.
Sure, you might have heard of it. It's Block Inc. They're basically the POS system for a lot of small businesses, a lot of local
Right.
businesses. So what we ended up doing with them is we partnered with them. So all these small businesses across the country are now on our gift card platform. So we had 200 national retailers, pretty easy to manage, but now we have hundreds of thousands of local businesses that are on
Mm,
the platform,
right.
right?
Right.
So whenever you have a big lift like this, where a lot of dev works behind it, and there's a big change to your platform, you're going to run into bugs.
Yeah.
Anytime you update your website, anything, you might be like, "This is perfect," and then you have that one customer who's using that weird browser you've never heard of. For some reason,
Right.
it's not working.
Right.
Um, so we found out that you could plug in pieces of code that you've written, and ChatGPT can help you debug it. So
Mm,
if you're like, why isn't this displaying correctly? You can grab that line of JavaScript, even if it's Python. There's extensions for Python as well, and you can bring that in there, tell it what you're trying to do. It'll run that code itself and be like, it's showing this because of this, and then it'll give you code back, being like, this is corrected code. So when we did this launch, we kind of went through this with a few other, we were like, this looks perfect. But we looked at it on a different browser and we're like, why does that look that way?
hmm.
So we kind of ran the code through there, and we found a little more universal piece of code that we can use. Coding is just language, and sometimes you get wrapped up in your own language. You kind of forget the obvious
Yeah.
alternative that might be out there.
Yeah. It's a really great point. A few nevers you suggested, like never ever. Never use it for what? What has ChatGPT not been good for, in your opinion?
I think the number one thing, especially if you're planning on using it for your business, is
Hmm.
never use it for a sales email. I probably have about 20 emails, unread emails in my inbox right now that are just, I can clearly tell it was a robot that sent it.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, that's not how people talk. You're missing
Right.
that human element. And my suggestion is, slow down, get
Hmm.
personal again. Like if you are reaching out to a cold prospect and you want to, get their business, you might need to take that time to understand who they are, what their business is,
Yeah.
be a little more personal in your approach.
Yep. You do some creative writing yourself. Folks may not know that you're a writer. How do you see Chat GPT enabling a better creativity, or perhaps thwarting or diminishing? Where are you at on the whole? Because this touches on the sales letter thing. This is where you put your
Yeah.
creative mind, your sales mind to use. I'll give you my opinion, but I'm really curious about yours.
I was my initial reaction was I was almost afraid, where I
Mm.
was like, oh no, I'm gonna throw away my notebook. I'm gonna get rid of my typewriter here. I'm just gonna get rid of it all.
Right.
You know what? And the first thing I did with ChatGPT when I've heard of it was I asked it to write me poetry, because as a writer,
Mhm.
that's one of my favorite things to dabble into is poetry. It's my like saving grace. It keeps my creativity flowing. So I was unsure at first. I was like, is this robot going to write a poem better than me?
Right.
And I realized it couldn't. And then that's when I started thinking, like, it could help you figure out when you get stuck in places. Like sometimes I'll
Hmm.
write stories, and I noticed, like, it kind of helped me get unstuck a little bit, where I was like, where would you could prompt it and be like, what's the next paragraph that would fit here?
Yep.
And it can kind of be an exercise to like get your brain going. I
Yeah.
haven't like copied and pasted like, oh, that was a great paragraph, but I was like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Like this took
Yeah.
my story to a different direction,
That's exactly right.
the direction I wanted it to go. So it got competitive with it. Is really kind
Yeah.
of what happened.
Right.
But I could write better than that.
Right.
And it really kind of projected me forward.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think we all have to reconcile to the fact, first of all, we're already using AI tools all the time. They're baked into TikTok, they're baked into Instagram, they're everywhere. We've been using things like Grammarly for a long while now. I think a lot of folks are using it. And so we're already using those. And I'm with you. I actually don't see it as a threat. People think that content people would be threatened by it. I'm not threatened by it at all because I've already been using it and it has greatly enhanced the work that I do. And I'm also with you in the sense that it's great for creative roadblock. Getting unstuck with creative roadblocks. Notion is one of my favorite document editors, and they have it now baked right into the flow, the workflow. So you never have to leave a search engine. You think about the distraction factor of you as a creative person working on a project. When I say creative, this can be a creative article for business. It can be your sales copy that you're working on, and not having to get distracted and lose your train of thought, and giving yourself that person to prompt back and forth. And like you said, have that conversation, even if the conversation is like, well, that's shit, I can write better than that. It at least unlocked you a little bit, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. There's that nudge there where you're like, yeah, you need that competitiveness every once in a while.
Yeah, for sure. Readwise has a reader app called Reader that just came out probably about 6 months ago. And what I love, they also created an AI tool within the workflow. So you can be reading an article like I did recently. There's an article by Kevin Kelly, who's been writing the Technium newsletter forever. And he's the original editor of Wired Magazine, just a brilliant guy. Well, naturally, he's speaking above my pay grade, right? He's speaking above levels that I understand. But Reader has this AI tool built into it called Ghost Reader, and I love the nomenclature. You would love this. I love how it prompts you. It says, "Do you want to invoke Ghost Reader?" And what Ghost Reader does, it says the copy is about you talking to the article. So it's like you would normally do in your head. You're just doing it now with AI and another person in the room. You're asking it, "What does Kevin mean when he says, the technium?" And can give you that kind of feedback. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Other than ChatGPT, do you have some other tools you've been using?
Yeah, funny enough, I mean, you mentioned Grammarly, and I was going to mention that as like it's something we've all been using for
Yeah.
years. No one realizes it's AI.
Yeah.
I use it a lot when it comes to proposals and things like that, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll put it in there, and I'm like, am I being too passive? And it'll tell
Yeah.
me like, you should be
Yeah.
a little more straightforward. Here's how you do it. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe I should have just dialed it in a little bit more.
Right.
But we've used Jasper for a long time. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but
No.
it's made for content creation. And the way it works is you can select what type of media you're trying to post onto, right? So you can say, this is going to be for Instagram, this is going to be for LinkedIn, or this is going to be for TikTok, whatever it may be. And it understands the audience that's going to be on there, and
Yeah.
it feeds you back content that's like bite sized for it.
Yeah.
So you're like, here's the picture I'm going to post on Instagram. Here's what I'm trying to say. What should I write?
Yeah.
And it knows. It's like
I
this.
have heard it now that you've said that. You know what we'll do too, Brian? I'll link to, I've been keeping a collection of editing tools, editor tools, creation tools, video editing tools, all those kinds of things for content for my own use in a nerdy little graph that I've been creating. So we'll add that to our show notes so people can see other things like Jasper there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
How do you see us using ChatGPT in the future? Like you're keeping an eye on this, so you're starting to look at you're really into this. You're like, I think we can use this for more and more things. How do you see this evolving as our industry evolves?
Funny enough, I think it's going to be sort of the MySpace of things. I think not that it's the first version of something, but I think it's the first excitement.
Yeah.
Someone else is going to just enhance this.
Right.
So, our eggs aren't fully in like one basket. We're going to use this forever. But it's
Right.
like figuring out how to use this, because there's someone else out there who's like, I'm going to make a way better version of this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when that does happen, people are going to kind of seamlessly move to it. So I
Yeah.
think for a while, I mean, there's going to be a lot more use cases. I think a lot of integrations that are going to come out, like the Google Sheets one that I mentioned. I think there's
Mhm.
a lot more of that. And that's just going to kind of like be a catalyst to
Yeah.
increase more AI bots to come out.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think we're seeing the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be so much coming forward in the next 6 to 12 months, really in the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah,
We're going to see proliferation of all of this. I'm attending. We had our guest Paul Raitzer here of the AI Institute on before, and is hosting an AI for Writers conference that I'll be attending soon. I mean, you can imagine putting on an AI for Writers conference in 30 days. How much can change the way the velocity is happening in the tech world right now?
I totally agree. You would have no idea. In 30 days, it could be something completely different out there. And I
Brian,
think
you
there's a, with that said, like, I don't think people should be afraid of it. I feel like a lot of
yeah,
times I've talked to a few people who are business owners, and they're like, "Whoa, I don't know, I don't want any part of that. Like, that's too crazy." And I'm like, "You should proceed with caution, but you should
right.
proceed."
For sure. For sure. Even just playing with it. I mean, I think it's a good exercise to know exactly what's going on. Brian, you've been generous with your time. I'm starting to do this more and more with guests. That when guests come on to the SKUcast, they're giving of their time freely. You haven't talked a thing about MediaTree. What's happening lately with MediaTree? What's going on with you guys? Is there something exciting you want to share with us that's happened? What do folks, or let me ask it this way, what do folks not know about MediaTree that you wish they knew right now?
I think it's the shop local product we were talking about earlier. It's really new. There's not many people in the industry who've seen it really. It's a really exciting thing. It unlocks all these different gift card options within your area, which is always something people have always asked for. They're always looking for supporting local businesses, things that are sustainable. So we're able to deliver this via email. There is no carbon footprint you have to worry about. There's no shipping you have to worry about, and the recipient is able to go to get a gift card for a local place that's around them. We've seen a lot of people go to coffee shops, breweries, things like that, where none of that was possible beforehand. We only had
Yeah.
Amazon, things like that. But now I can go to a local shop in my town, and I think it's really exciting for other people to have that opportunity as well.
That's really cool. So I can do, let's say I'm doing a corporate gift basket for a client and I want to include a media tree in as well to encourage them to shop local. I don't have to go find all those, get in touch with all those vendors. You've done all the hard work for us. It's just a matter of activating those cards.
Exactly. And you don't have to worry, what zip code is this person in? What zip code is
Yeah.
that person in? They have the ability to just type in their own zip code and see all the options near them.
Yeah. Very cool. Thanks for sharing, man. Thanks for sharing your expertise. I always love talking with you. And we appreciate you guys at MediaTree. And thanks for keeping us sharp with this kind of stuff. I'd love to know 6 months down the road how you and I are both evolving with this because it's going to change a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll definitely keep in touch.
All right. Thanks, brother.